Hi, this is Greg from the Rio Grande Jewelry Tech team, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a vulcanized silicone mold without cutting it apart with a knife. If you've always wanted to learn how to make molds and thought it might be too difficult, you really want to watch this video because I'm going to show you just how simple it can be. So let's get started. This is a special process that I've been using for over 30 years. And I think it can really change the way you think about and make molds. Most of the time, molds like these are cut with a scalpel or X-Acto knife, which takes a lot of time to learn and practice. My process uses mica powder to separate the mold halves and inserts. What you'll need: flat scraper, mica powder, mold frame and mold plates, dental tools, sprue former, silicone rubber, some Q-tips and alcohol, X-Acto knife, heat-proof or leather gloves, a vulcanizer, and of course your model to mold. Okay, let me show you just how easy this is. I'm going to use this 1-inch double frame, and I'm going to take this bottom sheet of rubber, pull the plastic off of one side, but I'm going to leave it on this side just so it doesn't stick to the tabletop. I'm going to press it down in. I'm going to go around and get rid of any gaps just by pushing. The stuff is soft like putty, so you can actually manipulate it quite a bit. Make sure it's down flat. Okay. I'm going to go in with sheet number 2. Pull the plastic off of both sides on this one. Going to round the edges a little bit because the frame is rounded in the corners. We're going to press this in. I'm going to lay it in kind of like this so I don't trap any air. Go around again, press it up against the sides, get rid of this gap. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pack half of the thickness of the mold, because I want the mold to come apart in half like this. Okay. All right, now on the master, this edge of the master is rounded and this side has a nice sharp edge. So I'm going to use that sharp edge as the top of the bottom half of the mold because I want it to separate right at that sharp edge. So let's put the sprue former in against the side in the center this way. I'm going to press it down. I want it to kind of be in the center this way as well. Push it down a little bit. And then this master, I'll put it in the hole, push it in, and I'll press it down to the point where I want the mold to separate at, the mold line. So I want the mold line to be right on this edge. This is where I want it to separate, right there. So I'm going to press it down just a little bit more. And you can use your fingers, you can use a tool. Actually, I want the mold to kind of go down in this little depression too, from the top. So that's really the tricky part about this kind of mold making, is just thinking about where you want the mold to come apart and where you want the parting line to be. So that's pretty good. Now I'm going to come in and create my mold locks. And I'm just going to use this dull pencil. You could use anything, anything that's got this shape or this shape. It's just kind of a conical shape. I'm going to put a mold lock in each corner, and I'm just going down, pressing down. This stuff is soft, so it's easy to press. And I'll put some over here. Another one over here. You can put as many as you want. If you think you might need more, you can put them closer to the piece, etc. As many as you want. And they can really be any shape you want. I just use this because it's easy. Okay. So now, let me just double check after doing that. Sometimes you move the rubber around when you do that. I'm going to smooth this out. All right. So now we're ready to, this is exactly what I want the bottom half to look like. So I'm going to powder it because I want this to separate from the top half. So now we're going to bring in the mica powder. And I'm going to put powder down in these little registration keyholes. And I'm going to make sure I get it along this edge, because when I'm opening the mold and I'm looking at a block of rubber right out of the vulcanizer, I want to look for this white line. Okay, now I'm going to go over the rest of the rubber. I'm going to make sure you cover the whole surface, because wherever you don't cover it, or if you leave it unpowdered, it's going to stick to the top half. That's pretty good. If you put too much rubber on, you can just pour it back in, tap it in, or blow it off, one of the two. So now we're ready to put the top half on. And I'm going to clean my hands a little bit because I might have gotten some powder on there. So I'm just going to use a little bit of alcohol on my fingertips. Or you can just wash them, doesn't matter. Now let's put in these plugs. I'm just using some leftover scrap. And all I do is just make it into a little shape like this and stick it in. Press it down. This is why you want to have clean hands, because you don't want to get this powder on the tops of these little plugs, because you want it to stick to the top half. You'll see that once we start doing it. Pulling the mold apart, rather, sorry. And I think I got a little bit of powder on the tops, and I'm just going to clean it a little bit. So that way I make sure it sticks. And you don't want to get any other areas clean, just the tops of those. Now I'm going to come in with the top pieces. And here we're going to lay this on. Coming in like this. Press it down. Got a little bit of powder here on the top, and get rid of that. Okay. And I'm going to put one more sheet because it has to be flush with the top. And I realize that this is going to stick above, but that's why we have the scraper. I'll show you. Press that down a little bit. If you have leftover thinner sheets or pieces, you can use those on this top. There's a little bit of powder there too. So there's quite a bit of excess on here, so I'm going to scrape this off. There's a little trick that I just learned about scraping. So I used to start at one end and scrape, but what happens is the end that you start at gets pulled away. So what I do now is I start in the middle and I scrape this way. And then I go this way, like that. Makes it a little smoother. You can see where this top connected to the piece underneath. And if you have a little indentation or an air pocket, you can always just add a little bit. It's not a big deal. It all fuses together in the vulcanizer. I'm just going to add a little bit in here. And you can even blend that in if you like. That's pretty good. All right. So that's the packed mold. I'm going to take the plastic off of the back. And then we're ready to add the plates. One thing I like to do to help the plates release from the rubber after it's vulcanized is I add a little bit of Dawn dish soap to the plates. It works as a really good release agent for the plates. So I just put a little bit on. And then we're going to put one plate on the bottom. Try to get it centered because this plate is a little smaller than the frame. And then I'm going to center this one on here. Actually, let me turn this way. All right. So that is ready to go into the vulcanizer. So before we put this in the vulcanizer, this frame happens to be vented. So silicone rubber needs unvented frames, but you can still use your vented frames, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The way that I solve that problem is I just take a little piece of brass and stick it here, and basically I'm blocking the hole from the inside. Smooth that over a little bit. And then put the plate back on and we're ready to go. Okay, so now this is just going to go into a preheated vulcanizer. Make sure it's in the middle. And so now we're just going to spin it till it stops and then just give it a little bit more. So now it's been an hour and we're ready to pop this mold out. So let's open it up. And then we're going to take it out. The plates are actually falling off pretty much. And we're going to let it cool down because it's still pretty hot. And then we'll pop it out in a second after it cools down. Okay, so we popped this mold out of the frame. And now we're getting ready to open it. But first I'm going to trim off some of this flashing. When the silicone is cooking, it expands. And even though we trimmed it to be flush in the frame, it still expanded a little bit. And this will just clean it up so we're not dealing with this flash as we handle it. Okay, get rid of this. Now, here's the mold. It's a little bit off center, but you can see where this white line is, where it's going to separate. So now, let me take out this sprue former first. And then we'll find this line. I like to start on a corner, and then I can kind of go like this just to get under there a little bit. And I'll get a little bit more. Then all you have to do really from this point is just kind of pull it apart. And comes apart like that, and then you could actually trim all this stuff. There you go, and you can see how nice and shiny all those details are. The vulcanized molds do a great job of reproducing the detail. Now let's take it over and try and inject it. Okay, so we're ready to do our first injection to try it out. I'm going to just inject it before we even decide if it needs vents or anything like that, so I'm just going to try a regular injection. I usually like to go around 8 to 10 pounds for the first shot. I've got this neat little clamp. I'm going to use this to hold it. It gives nice even pressure. And let's see how it goes. Okay. And we'll give it a second here to cool. Let me take it out. Just release it. And I'll let it sit for a second. Pull the top off. Looks like it filled pretty good without any venting or powder or anything. Just pick this out. It's still kind of hot, but I think it'll come out. There you go. It's got a nice shiny surface like vulcanized waxes have. And that's it. So now you have a production mold, and nice durable production mold that'll last for years and years. Now that you've seen how easy this process is for a simple mold, you can start getting more elaborate with multiple layers and inserts, like this dragon crystal holder mold with 3 layers and plugs. I hope you found this information helpful and can now make your own molds. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as usual, if you have any questions, contact us.